Have you ever stopped to think that even though you faithfully keep the Sabbath, you may be displeasing God? Many Adventists believe they are doing everything right. They leave work, dress reverently, go to church, and follow the schedule. But what if, in the midst of all this, they were making serious mistakes, without even realizing it? The Sabbath is a divine gift. But it is also a test of faithfulness, discernment, and heart intention. Today, we are going to talk about 5 mistakes that, even with good intentions, many have been making. And that may be turning the holiest day of the week into an empty formality. If you take the 4th commandment seriously, this video is for you. Mistake 1, keeping the Sabbath only as an external routine. It is possible to keep the Sabbath, and still displease God. It may seem contradictory, but many Adventists today live the Sabbath mechanically. They know when to turn the lights on and off, the right clothes to wear, the hymns to sing, but their hearts are distant. They go to church, sit in the pews, watch the program, but they don't truly worship. There is no surrender, no brokenness, no hunger for God's presence. And this is not something new. Isaiah 29 verse 13, "These people come near to me with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me." This text describes exactly what happens when worship becomes formalism. When the holiness of the Sabbath is replaced by the appearance of holiness. The Sabbath is not just the absence of work, but the real presence of God. It was not given only for physical rest, but to restore the soul, renew faith, and revive fellowship. It is on this day that God makes an appointment with us. But, have we been showing up? Or just going through the motions? Many are so concerned with keeping the Sabbath that they forget to live it. The question remains, last Sabbath, did you just stop, or did you truly worship? Mistake 2, defining Sabbath rules based on human customs. Is this allowed on the Sabbath? What about that? This is one of the most frequently asked questions among Adventists, and often the answer does not come from the Bible, but from tradition. For years, God's people have been teaching rules about the Sabbath based on customs, local interpretations, or even personal experiences. Gradually, these rules gained strength, until they became commandments that God never gave. And when the Sabbath is regulated by human traditions, instead of spiritual principles, it ceases to be a blessing, and becomes a burden. Matthew 15 verse 9, "In vain do they worship me, teaching as doctrines the precepts of men." Jesus directly confronted this type of religiosity. Because when the focus is on lists of do's and don'ts, we lose sight of the purpose. The Sabbath was not created to bind us to rules, but to free us from the world and bring us closer to the Creator. The basis must be the Word. The criterion must be spiritual. Does this bring me closer to or further away from God on this day? Does it help me to sanctify time, or does it distract me from communion? Silent legalism has led many to judge sincere brothers and sisters, while neglecting the presence of the Spirit. The Sabbath is not a day to watch over others, but to watch over one's own heart. Before we continue, if this topic has touched you in any way, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a comment. Have you noticed any of these mistakes in your life or in your church? And if you want to support this project in reaching more people with serious and biblical messages, use the super chat. This helps us to continue with this work. Mistake 3, treating the Sabbath as a burden and not as a blessing. The Sabbath was created by God as a gift. A day of relief, joy, and spiritual renewal. But in many Adventist homes, this gift has been transformed into a burden. There are families in which the Sabbath is lived with extreme rigidity, forced silence, excessive prohibitions, a heavy atmosphere, especially for children. Instead of growing up loving the Sabbath, many little ones grow up counting the minutes until it is over. And worse, many do so believing that they are being faithful. Mark 2 verse 27, "The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath." It was Jesus who said this. The Sabbath was not created to oppress us, but to restore us. It is a day that should reflect the character of the God who instituted it, a God of grace, mercy, and joy. When we treat the Sabbath as a burden, we are denying its real purpose. We are teaching, without words, that God is a severe Father who is only pleased with cold and inflexible obedience. But the true Sabbath is one that fills the home with peace, brings lightness to the heart, strengthens family bonds, and rekindles the joy of being with God. If the Sabbath is causing tension instead of rest, perhaps it's time to reevaluate how we are living that day. Because God never wanted His blessing to become a punishment. Mistake 4, starting and ending the Sabbath mechanically. For many, the sunset on Friday and Saturday has become just a marker of time. When the clock strikes 6 p.m., the Sabbath begins. When it strikes 6 p.m. the next day, it ends. Done. Mission accomplished. But does this automatic punctuality please God? Many people enter the Sabbath as if they were clocking in. And they leave it the same way, without reverence, without reflection, without intention. Just fulfilling a religious obligation, as if it were a simple protocol. Isaiah 58 verses 13 to 14, if you turn away your foot from the Sabbath, if you call it delightful, then you will delight in the Lord. God is not just asking for punctuality. He wants purpose. He wants us to enter the Sabbath with a prepared heart and leave it with a renewed soul. The Sabbath does not begin on the clock. It begins in the mind. It begins when you decide to slow down, disconnect from the ordinary, and prepare yourself spiritually for this sacred encounter. And it does not end when the sun goes down either. The effect of the Sabbath should remain, a calmer spirit, a more vibrant faith, a deeper gratitude. To live the Sabbath mechanically is to miss the essence of that day. It is to turn an encounter with God into a chronological routine. Because the Sabbath is not a schedule. It is an experience. Mistake 5, neglecting the spiritual mission of the Sabbath. It is common to think of the Sabbath as a day reserved only for personal rest, to disconnect from work and take care of oneself. But this view, while comfortable, is incomplete, and may even be distorting the true purpose God gave to this holy day. The Sabbath was not created only for us to rest from physical effort, but also to strengthen our spiritual mission. It is a time to act, to serve, to bring hope to those in need. Many forget that the Sabbath is a divine opportunity to put into practice the love we profess. Matthew 12 verse 12, it is lawful to do good on the Sabbath. Jesus made it clear that doing good, helping others, does not contradict the Sabbath commandment, on the contrary, it is its true essence. When we neglect this mission, we run the risk of turning the Sabbath into a day closed in on ourselves, a routine of spiritual isolation, where faith becomes an individual practice, without expression to the world. The Sabbath is an invitation to open our eyes to the needs around us, to reach out to the afflicted, to be light and hope in the midst of darkness. It is on this day that we are called to reflect the character of God, a God who loves, who cares, who acts. Thus, keeping the Sabbath is not only an act of obedience, but of service. It is not a time for selfishness, but for compassion. The question remains, have you been using the Sabbath to strengthen your spiritual mission? Or are you letting it become a time just for yourself? Keeping the Sabbath in spirit and truth means resting in the Lord, but also acting with Him, being an instrument of His peace and love to the world. The Sabbath is much more than a day on the calendar. It is a blessing, a divine gift that brings rest, renewal, and communion with God. But it is also a responsibility, a call to keep this time in spirit and truth, with an open heart, joy, and reverence. Making the mistakes we show here may seem small, but they take us away from the true purpose of the Sabbath. And when that happens, the holy day becomes an empty formality, a lifeless ritual. May God help us to live the Sabbath as He intended, not just keeping rules, but worshiping sincerely, not just keeping schedules, but seeking fellowship, not just resting, but serving. The Sabbath is an invitation to a transformed life. If this video touched your heart, be sure to like it, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your brothers and sisters. And tell me here in the comments, which of these mistakes have you noticed in your life or in your church? See you next time.